Look, the real problem here is it was an adventure without a plan. What struck me was that Donald Trump is about to become what he never, ever wanted to be, Jimmy Carter.
Yes.
He is being held hostage by Iran. They are holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage. As a result, they're holding the world economy hostage. And it's focused at Donald Trump. And here we are, and it was all voluntary.
Sums it all up. What's notable there is that is Republican Chris Christie, one-time supporter, friend, and ally of Donald Trump's, describing the war in Iran as it is, a disaster of Donald Trump's own making. That Donald Trump is now stuck in a war and an economic crisis that he created, that he started with no plan to begin with. And more than 5 months in, little or no options and absolutely no leverage over Iran. Now a defiant Iran is vowing to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed until the U.S. meets a sweeping list of steep demands that now includes billions of dollars in war reparations. In recent days, Donald Trump has said he was both prepared to launch the biggest attack since World War II, and he has said that he is convinced that a deal with Iran is once again imminent. Now Donald Trump is signaling that he's actually in no rush at all to get the United States of America out of the war with Iran. In a new interview with Axios, Trump declared the U.S. is now, as the kids say, low-keying it with Iran and only semi-negotiating with them. Those are quotes. Instead, Trump said, quote, "We're just watching Iran with its huge inflation and the fact that they have no money," end quote. But don't worry, Trump says, because, quote, "it will work out. It always works out. It's like a chess game." I want to bring in Anne Applebaum. She's, of course, a columnist for The Atlantic and the host of the podcast Autocracy in America. Claire's still with us. Anne, which chapter of The Autocrats?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of the question. I think what we're seeing is... Say that again?
Go ahead. I just said which part of an autocrat's advantage is starting a war that the country doesn't support and then very publicly losing it?
I don't think it's really to anybody's advantage, whether they're an autocrat or a Democrat. Trump started the war on false premises. He imagined it would work out the same way as Venezuela. Instead, as you've just heard, it's working out a little bit more like America's relation with Iran in 1979. I think the most important thing, though, to note now is that the U.S. is actually less and less of a participant in the war, or in the negotiations to end the war. So the main negotiation is now going on between Iran and Oman. And they are working out in very great detail how to manage the Strait of Hormuz. I presume that the rest of the Middle East is negotiating with them. And the U.S. is now a kind of secondary player. So when Trump says, "I'm low-keying it," whatever that means, what he is actually saying is that the U.S. isn't really participating. And it may be that the end game of the war is decided without the United States or to the disadvantage of the United States, because if Iran and Oman figure out how to control the strait and then simply make demands of America, and the U.S. has no more leverage, we're running out of weapons, we don't have ideas, we don't have as many friends in the Middle East as we used to, then it will get decided without us.
What does that mean in terms of our ability to protect? I mean, America still has troops in the region. There are sailors who have been on the USS Lincoln now for many, many months. I mean, what does that mean for the United States military to take such a back seat?
It means that our troops are in danger because they become sitting ducks. They become part of a game that Iran can play if they want to put up pressure on the U.S. or they want to put pressure on U.S. allies. It means that we have less say and less influence in other regional capitals. I think that's starting to happen already. You can see the Gulf states looking for other links, other friends. They're talking to Europeans. They're talking to the Ukrainians, actually, about how to defend against drones and how to defend against Iran as they begin to lose faith in their alliance with the United States. I mean, this is a long-term process, and it will play out over many years. But the fact that the U.S. is now not a reliable negotiator, in other words, what the president says one day, he can contradict the next day, and the U.S. is not a reliable player, so it's unpredictable. It's not clear what its strategy is. It's not a country that anybody can rely on. All of that means that everybody else will begin to hedge, and they'll begin to look for ways around dealing with the U.S. How do we solve this problem without them? And sooner or later, we lose influence in the region, and to our detriment.
And they have started a project. I want to get this right. The Guardian's reporting it like this. An American oil company connected to Donald Trump is preparing to sink wells in remote Greenland, despite not having received permission from the local authorities. As the American president renews his threats to claim the vast Arctic territory, materials to prepare for drilling were brought ashore in recent days on Greenland's eastern coast. It has prompted Greenland's government to issue a strong warning that no approval had been granted. From losing a war against an American ally to what? Pretending to start one, or actually doing things that would start one with an ally? I mean, how do you assess what's happening in Greenland, one, and how do you take it alongside what Trump has done in Iran, two?
So we've all left Greenland aside since the days in January when the Danes were sending troops to Greenland planning to blow up airport runways just in case the United States was going to invade. But actually, there has been a low-key, somewhat strange, not exactly covert U.S. project, is the best way I can put it, ongoing in Greenland since then. There are a number of U.S.-linked companies. The one that you're talking about that The Guardian wrote about has Republican donors as shareholders, has some strange links to the Republican Party. Of all people, Dr. Phil, the chat show host, has been commissioned by this company to make a documentary about so-called the glamour of wildcat drilling in Greenland. I mean, so there's an attempt to create a kind of PR effort around the company. And as the article said, and as you mentioned from the headline, although they have theoretical permission to drill there because they took over a previous company that had that, they don't have specific permission to offload drilling equipment. And so they seem to be doing it in defiance of the government. And so what you're watching is a kind of clumsy, I mean, I would call it a covert operation, except that it's not that covert. It's an attempt to influence Greenland, an attempt to create facts on the ground. And what it will do is create a backlash, just like it did in January. But I should say it's one of several similar efforts, many equally clumsy, going on in Greenland now, sort of business people with suspect links being involved in the national conversation there.